Welcome, dear listener. As the world around you softens into evening and your breath begins to slow, allow yourself to drift gently into the currents of deep time. Tonight, you are not merely falling asleep, you are stepping into history. Not just any history, but the long golden thread of a civilization born beside the river Nile, a land of sun and shadow, stone and silence, a land where gods walked beside mortals, and kings claimed divinity not by force, but by ritual, legacy, and the art of balance. This is the story of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs. But unlike loud tales of conquest or revolution, this is a story of rhythm, of temples warmed by the rising sun, of stoneworkers chiseling names into eternity, of scribes dipping reeds into ink as a cool evening breeze stirs the palm fronds outside, and of a people whose every step, every harvest, prayer, and royal proclamation was guided by a single sacred truth, that the world only turns if balance is kept. That balance was called Mat, truth, order, justice. To live in Mat was to honor both the divine and the daily, and for more than 3,000 years it was the pharaoh's sacred duty to uphold that cosmic harmony. As we begin this journey, let your thoughts drift like lotus petals on the Nile. You will not need to memorize names or dates. There is no test. The story will unfold naturally, as the stars wheel across the desert sky, told gently, with pauses for reflection, and described with care, so that even in slumber, your mind can wander the temples, tombs, and sunlit courtyards of an ancient world. You may know the names of some of the kings: Tutankhamun and Ramses, the great Cleopatra, but you will also come to know others less remembered: the pyramid builders Nephero, the theological rebel Akhenaten, the diplomat Queen Hatshepsut, and the forgotten rulers who kept the kingdom steady through centuries of flood and drought. Together, we will trace the rise and fall of dynasties. We will hear the prayers of priests and the songs of harvesters. We will enter tombs, still sealed, when the pyramids were new, and emerge into the sunlight of the Nile's eternal cycle. Our story begins long before writing, before kings wore crowns or built temples. It begins in the silence of pre-dynastic Egypt, when small communities gathered along the fertile riverbanks, planting barley in the rich black earth left behind by the flood. To the ancient Egyptians, the land was divided in two: the red land, the burning desert, home of chaos and death, and the black land, or Kemet, the fertile floodplain where life thrived. Each year, the river rose and fell with seasonal precision, bringing not only water and food but order, time, and meaning. Out of these rhythms grew cities. Out of cities grew leaders, and out of leaders came kings. The first of these kings we will meet in Chapter 1, Nama, who around 3100 BCE unified Upper and Lower Egypt into a single state. With that unification came the concept of the pharaoh, not merely a king, but the living embodiment of Horus, the sky god, and later the son of Ra, the sun god. As we journey forward, you will come to see that each pharaoh was more than a ruler. He, or in a few rare cases, she, was an intermediary between heaven and earth. Pharaohs made offerings, led rituals, commissioned temples, issued decrees, and built tombs designed not for death but for eternal life. You will hear the story of Djoser and his brilliant architect Imhotep, who built the first pyramid of stone, of Khufu, whose pyramid at Giza still rises toward the stars, of Senusret, who reigned during Egypt's literary flowering, of Thutmose, Amenhotep, and Ramses, whose images were carved 60 feet tall into temple walls. And between these giants, you will meet the daily life of Egypt: the farmers, craftsmen, priestesses, dancers, bakers, scribes, and soldiers who made this civilization live and breathe. You will smell the incense burning at dawn, feel the rush of the Nile wind, hear the murmur of chants in the sacred halls. Time in Egypt flows not in straight lines, but in cycles of life and death, flood and harvest, dynasty and decay. Each time the kingdom crumbles, it rises again. New kings emerge from the ruins. Old gods are reborn in new forms. The later chapters will guide you gently through Egypt's transformations: the Amarna period, when the old gods were nearly swept away, the slow decline under foreign rule, and the final queen, Cleopatra VII, whose love stories and tragic end have echoed through time. But even as Egypt's political power faded, its spiritual presence endured. The Roman emperors worshipped its gods. Medieval scholars studied its symbols, and today, across museum halls and quiet desert ruins, the story of Egypt remains patient, powerful, and still speaking. Before we begin Chapter 1, let us reflect on where we are. You are lying in a quiet room, thousands of years removed from the builders of pyramids and temples, and yet their voices still reach you. Their lives were ruled by the same sun that rises outside your window. Their dreams filled with the same fears and hopes of love, memory, loss, and meaning. As you breathe in and out, feel yourself transported to the riverbank. The moon reflects in the water. A boat drifts by, carrying offerings for the gods. In the distance, a priest whispers a hymn: O Ra. You rise in splendor. You bring light to the world. You make the two lands whole, and the king stands before you, offering Mat in his hands. This is not a myth. It is memory, not fantasy, but legacy. So let us now step forward, softly, into chapter 1. The sands are still, the temples await, and the Nile flows on. The sky is pale blue above the Nile Valley. The river winds through the land like a sacred thread, drawing life from the deep south to the wide delta in the north. Along its banks, small settlements stir to life, farmers rising before dawn, fishermen casting their nets, children running between clay houses. But something is changing. The year is around 3100 BCE, though no one calls it that yet. In these early centuries, Egypt is not yet a single kingdom. Instead, it is many small worlds. To the south, in Upper Egypt, people live in narrow valleys, bordered by limestone cliffs. They wear white, tend goats and barley, and carve their gods into the walls of caves. Their villages cluster around the narrow floodplain, and their leaders, tribal chieftains, known as nomarchs, begin to take on more power to the north. In Lower Egypt, the landscape is different: flat, marshy, green with reeds and papyrus. Life moves through waterways, not roads. The people here wear red. They pray to cobra goddesses and build their homes on raised platforms to keep out the water. Between these two lands, rivalry grows. The people of the south worship Nekhbet, the vulture goddess of protection. Those in the north venerate Wadjet, the cobra goddess of sovereignty. Each has its own king, each claims divine right, and each believes it is the true heart of Egypt. But the river does not divide, it connects. From this connection a great unification is born. Enter Narmer. He is not the first king of Egypt, but he is the first whose name echoes with authority and permanence. His image appears on a ceremonial object known as the Narmer palette, carved from smooth green schist and discovered in the temple of Hierakonpolis. It is a message in stone, part myth, part memory. On one side, Narmer wears the tall white crown of Upper Egypt, striking down an enemy as the falcon god Horus watches. On the other, he dons the red crown of Lower Egypt, inspecting rows of decapitated foes. He is not just a warrior king, he is a cosmic agent of order, bringing unity where there was once division. And above all, he is the first to rule over a united land. Later records call him Menes, and debate still surrounds whether Narmer and Menes are the same man or part of a larger dynasty. But archaeological and symbolic evidence agree. Around this time, Upper and Lower Egypt become one. The double crown called the Pashanti is born, and a single ruler takes the title king of the two lands. The capital is founded at Memphis, near the division between north and south. Here the king builds palaces and temples, governs trade, and oversees irrigation. Memphis becomes not just a political center, but a symbol of unity where two cultures meet, and the Nile binds them together. The early kings of the first dynasty are buried at Abydos in tombs dug into the desert cliffs. Names like Aha, Jur, and Den survive on ivory tags and small stone stelae. Their burials are modest compared to later monuments, but already we see the seeds of divine kingship take root. These early pharaohs are not just rulers, they are avatars of the god Horus, the falcon who soars across the sky, watching over Egypt. Their names are enclosed in a spherical rectangular crest topped by a falcon. This symbol appears on stone vessels, walls, and seals, signaling divine authority. One ruler, Queen Mernith, may have acted as regent or ruler, perhaps even Egypt's first female pharaoh. Her tomb at Abydos is arranged like those of kings, complete with grave goods and symbolic inscriptions. Though her reign is shadowed by time, her memory hints that even in early Egypt, women could claim royal power. As the first dynasty ends and the second dynasty begins, Egypt faces new challenges: internal unrest, shifting borders, ambitious local governors. But the kingship endures. The last ruler of the second dynasty, Khasi-Khemui, takes a unique title combining both Horus and Seth, the gods of order and chaos. His name means the two powers appear, and suggests an effort to heal divisions, both political and divine. His stone statues, carved with care, show a king seated calmly, wrapped in royal linens, gazing forward with purpose. By the time the third dynasty begins, kingship is firmly established as a sacred institution. The pharaoh is the son of the gods, the axis of the cosmos, the giver of Mat. But what exactly is Ma'at? More than law or justice, Mat is the universal balance, a harmony between heaven and earth, spirit and matter, man and God. When the king offers Mat to the gods, often shown in art as a small figure or feather, he is not giving a gift. He is sustaining the very fabric of the universe. To ensure Ma'at, the pharaoh must build temples, offer sacrifices, speak sacred words, and uphold truth and governance. His every act is both political and spiritual. Even death is not an escape from duty but a transformation. The king dies, but he does not vanish. He becomes one with Osiris, lord of the underworld, and as Horus, his heir takes his place. Kingship is an eternal cycle, just like the river, just like the sun. This belief in eternal return will soon take form in stone. But first, let us pause. Higher among the tombs of Abydos, the reeds of Memphis, and the temple courts of the early dynasties, feel the dry heat of the southern wind. Hear the low chant of priests at dusk. Imagine a royal bark gliding across the Nile, bearing offerings of bread and beer, fruit and incense. The king stands beneath the stars, arms raised, praying to the gods of both north and south. He has brought unity, he has made Egypt whole, and from this wholeness a civilization will rise. As your breath slows, picture the early crown, the red and white joined together, shining beneath the desert sun. The pharaoh does not conquer, he harmonizes, he protects the rhythm of life, and soon he will build monuments that do not crumble. The sky is brilliant blue above the desert plain. The Nile shimmers in the distance. The air is dry and still. But here, amid the pale limestone ridges of Saqqara, something rises. A structure unlike any seen before, a step pyramid, layered, like a staircase to the heavens. We are in the heart of the Old Kingdom, Egypt's first golden age. This is a time when kings are more than mortal. They are living gods, and they begin to express their divinity not only through ritual, but through stone. The builder of this first pyramid is Djoser, the second king of the third dynasty. His reign marks a turning point in Egyptian history. Under his command, architecture, art and administration take a leap forward. But it is his visionary architect Imhotep who leaves the deepest mark on eternity. Imhotep is no ordinary builder. He is a priest, a scribe, a healer, and later, a god. With Djoser's blessing, he conceives a monument that reaches step pyramid, composed of 6 mastabas stacked in decreasing size. It is surrounded by a vast complex of courtyards, ceremonial spaces, and stone walls decorated with columns carved to look like bundles of reeds imitating earlier wooden shrines. The step pyramid is more than a tomb. It is a cosmic ladder, a symbol of divine ascent. Djoser, in death, is not simply buried, he is transformed, reborn into the afterlife as a star, a god, a guardian of Mat. This innovation sets a precedent. As we drift forward into the 4th dynasty, we meet the greatest builders of all. First comes Sneferu, father of Egypt's pyramid age. He rules for perhaps 40 years, and during that time he builds not 1 but 3 monumental pyramids at Medum. He experiments with steep walls, but the structure collapses. At Dosha he constructs the famous bent pyramid, its angle changing midway up, likely due to instability. Finally, he perfects the form with the red pyramid, a true smooth-sided pyramid, rising with grace toward the sky. These are not just feats of engineering. They are metaphysical architecture models of the cosmos. Each pyramid is oriented to the cardinal directions, aligned with celestial bodies, and embedded with sacred meaning. But even these marvels are surpassed by what comes next. Sun Kufu, called Cheops by the Greeks, builds the Great Pyramid at Giza. It is the most iconic structure in Egyptian history, and one of the last surviving wonders of the ancient world. Constructed from over 2.3 million blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons, the Great Pyramid rises nearly 147 meters high. Its base is perfectly square, its sides almost flawlessly aligned with true north. The interior contains chambers, passageways, and a king's chamber roofed with granite beams so massive they defy explanation. The labor force that built it is not composed of slaves, but of well-fed state-supported workers, craftsmen, and villagers drafted in rotating shifts. Archaeological evidence from nearby workers' villages shows they ate well, lived in organized quarters, and were buried with respect. This monument, and those of Khephren and Menkaure, his successors, form the Giza necropolis, a sacred city of the dead, and guarding it is the great Sphinx, a lion-bodied, human-faced colossus carved from a single ridge of bedrock. Though its purpose and original name are lost, it likely represents Kafir, watching eternally toward the rising sun. As we wander these sun-baked plateaus, we see more than stone. We see the ideology of kingship cast in geometry and shadow. The pyramid is a symbol of divine ascension. Its shape echoes the Benbon, the sacred mound that rose from the primordial waters in the creation myth. The sharp apex points toward the sun god. The chambers within are filled with goods, symbols and texts not yet written on walls, but on scrolls and coffins to guide the king through the underworld. But with grandeur comes cost. Pyramid building demands vast resources, labor, stone, logistics, faith, and over time priorities shift. Later kings begin to focus less on monumentality and more on spiritual protection. By the 5th dynasty, pyramids shrink in scale but gain in symbolism. Inside the tomb of Unas, for the first time, we find the pyramid texts, magical inscriptions carved on the walls, designed to guide the pharaoh's soul through death. These are spells, hymns, declarations of transformation. O king, you have not gone dead, you have gone alive. You ascend to the sky among the stars. The focus moves from physical permanence to spiritual assurance. Pharaohs like Teti, Pepi, I, and Pepi to continue this trend. Their pyramids, built at Saqqara, contain increasingly elaborate texts and rituals, reflecting a kingdom more concerned with navigating the afterlife than overpowering it. Pepe II is said to have ruled for over 90 years, the longest reign in history. But such long rule breeds weaknesses. The central government begins to erode. Nomarch's local governors grow powerful and independent. The priesthood of Ra at Heliopolis gains influence, and soon, the balance of power tips. By the end of the 6th dynasty, the Old Kingdom collapses. This is not a collapse in fire or war but in silence. Pyramids are left unfinished. Temples crumble, famine and drought may play a role, and Egypt enters a time of fragmentation, known as the First Intermediate Period. But even as royal power falters, the ideology of kingship endures in provincial tombs. We see the same imagery: offerings to gods, prayers for resurrection, rituals of mat. The idea of divine rule persists, even when the rulers are small-town lords rather than pyramid-building kings. So let us pause here. You are lying beneath the stars, with the silent pyramids towering above. The desert is cool. The air carries the scent of stone dust and acacia. Somewhere nearby, a priest reads the pyramid texts aloud. Your bones are the bones of the earth. Your breath is the breath of the wind. You rise as a star in the east. You shine among the imperishable ones. These kings did not seek immortality through gold or conquest. They built with stone. They wrote in stars. And even now, thousands of years later, their monuments remain. As your breath slows and your eyes grow heavy, know this: you are lying at the edge of eternity, and the journey has only just begun. The golden light of dawn touches the waters of the Nile. The first cataract glistens in the south, and lotus blossoms sway gently in the current. We are entering a new age, not one defined by towering pyramids, but by resilience, renewal, and the flowering of inner life. This is the Middle Kingdom, a time when the pharaohs are no longer distant gods carved in stone, but shepherd kings, guardians of the people, chosen not just to rule but to restore. Following the turmoil of the First Intermediate Period, Egypt had splintered into competing factions. Local lords claimed divine titles. Tombs show pride in provincial achievement rather than central authority. But among these fragmented lands rises a unifier, Mentuhotep II, a Theban king who conquers the north and reunifies Egypt. His reign, beginning around 2050 BCE, marks the start of the 11th dynasty and the rebirth of pharaonic power. Mentuhotep constructs his mortuary temple at Deir el-Bahri, nestled against the cliffs of Thebes. Unlike the pyramids of the north, this complex blends architecture with nature. Colonnades mirror the horizontal lines of the cliffs. Terraces rise in harmony with the slope of the mountain. Here, death is not domination, it is integration, but it is the 12th dynasty that fully blossoms into Egypt's classical age of refinement. The most powerful ruler of this line is Senusret III, a warrior king, lawmaker, and reformer. He strengthens central control, reorganizes the administration, and expands Egypt's southern frontier into Nubia, building fortresses along the Nile like sharp teeth of the state. His statues show a departure from the serene god-kings of earlier times. His face is lined, his eyes weary, his expression thoughtful. This is not a divine abstraction, this is a real man. Shouldering the burdens of kingship, Senu's rule exemplifies a new philosophy of leadership, one not merely of might, but of wisdom, care, and service to the cosmic order. This period also sees the blossoming of literature, not for the elite alone, but for the thoughtful scribe, the dreaming student, the commoner who seeks understanding. Among the most famous works is the tale of Sinna. Sinna is a court official who flees Egypt upon hearing of the king's death. He wanders foreign lands, becomes a warrior, finds wealth and fame, but longs always for home. In old age, he returns to Egypt, is pardoned by the new pharaoh, and receives a noble burial. Never had I seen another land so sweet as Egypt, he declares, for here the people live, the river flows, and the gods watch over all. This story is not just a narrative, it is a mirror, a reflection of loyalty, identity, and the longing for belonging. Other works flourish too. Instruction texts offer advice from father to son, ruler to subject, teacher to pupil. They speak of moderation, justice, and humility. In the instruction of Amenhotep, a murdered king warns his son from beyond the grave. Trust no brother, know no friend, make no intimate. These are the rules of kingship. Such works reveal a shift from ritual to reflection, from myth to moral insight. Daily life in the Middle Kingdom is richly textured. Farmers till the fertile silt of the inundation. Artisans carve inlays for jewelry. Scribes dip their reed pens in red and black ink, copying legal codes and love poems alike. Women play active roles as priestesses, weavers, and landowners. Children learn from their elders, and families tend gardens filled with leeks, onions, and dates. In the temples, priests maintain the rhythms of the cosmos, chanting hymns, pouring libations, and burning incense before the statues of gods like Amen, who rises in importance in Thebes, becoming a hidden force behind all creation. Burial customs also evolve. Coffins bear coffin texts, derived from earlier pyramid texts, but now accessible to non-royal individuals. Death is no longer the domain of kings alone. The afterlife opens to scribes, merchants, and ordinary souls, so long as they have lived justly. Images from these coffins show journeys through the dew, with serpents, lakes of fire, and guardians of the gates. The deceased must name names, speak spells, and pass tests. But at the end, they reach the field of reeds, a mirror of earthly life, perfect in abundance. This democratization of the afterlife reflects a profound cultural shift. For the first time, The Egyptians articulate a shared spiritual aspiration. No longer do only kings claim divine rebirth. The common voice rises quiet, reverent, and enduring. Yet even this era of grace faces decline. The later kings of the 12th dynasty lose their grip on distant provinces. The 13th dynasty sees dozens of short-reigned pharaohs, Hyksos, rulers from the northeast, begin to gain control of the delta, bringing horses and chariots, and introducing new technologies like the composite bow. This begins the second intermediate period, a time of regional rule and foreign dominance in Lower Egypt. But once again, it is Thebes in the south that stirs with resolve. There the seeds are planted for another reunification, another age of splendor, another step along the long path of pharaohs and faith. So let us pause once more. The Nile flows gently beneath the moonlight. In the distance you hear the low voice of a priest reading from a coffin. I have not killed, I have not stolen, I have not spoken lies. I am pure. I shall rise. As you lie still, your breath slow and even, imagine yourself floating gently down river past fields of barley, palm groves, and villages lost to time, past scribes bent over scrolls and children, chasing ibis. In this age, the soul is not confined to kings, it belongs to all, and your journey like Egypt's continues still. The eastern sky begins to glow with the faint first rays of dawn. A delicate breeze drifts down the Nile Valley, carrying the scent of lotus and papyrus. In the distance the sandstone cliffs of Thebes glow golden, and the temples built by generations of devoted hearts rise like silent sentinels. We are entering the new kingdom, Egypt's imperial zenith, a time when pharaohs are warriors, diplomats, builders, poets, and priests. It is a period of power and prestige, of expanding borders, monumental architecture, and profound spiritual revolution. And tonight, as you drift further into rest, we will wander its courts, battlefields, temple halls, and starlit tombs. The chapter will carry us through the reigns of 5 of Egypt's most famous and most human, each shaped not only the world around them but the very perception of kingship itself. Nearly 400 years after the Middle Kingdom's end, a series of pharaohs begins the process of reunifying Egypt. They drive out the rulers who brought chariots and horse warfare and reclaimed the north. Under a unified banner. At the center of this renaissance is Amos I, founder of the 18th dynasty. He completes the siege of Avaris, the Hyksos capital, and pushes north into Syro-Palestine, securing Egypt's borders. Trade resumes, temples reopen. The silk of prestige covers the land. Under Amos's son, Amenhotep I, the central authority strengthens further, but it is Thutmose I who introduces a new vision of empire. He leads campaigns into Nubia and Syria, planting the seeds of an Egypt unbound by the desert. Towns rise near Nubia's gold mines. Trade caravans travel beyond the sands. Pharaoh becomes the soldier king, protector of Mat across hundreds of miles. Yet it is Thutmose's daughter-in-law shatters expectations. In a male-dominated system, she proclaims herself pharaoh, wearing the false beard and regal kilt. Her reign is long, some 20 years, and peaceful. Her greatest legacy is not conquest, but creation. Her mortuary temple at Dia el-Bari is a marvel, built into a cliff face. Its terraces bloom with rare incense trees and fragrant gardens. Elegant colonnades echo the valley cliffs. Reliefs show Hatshepsut's expedition to Punt, a land of exotic animals, ivory, and incense bark. She is shown not as a warrior, but as a nurturer, provider, gardener of prosperity. Gardener of prosperity. As you drift, picture her there beneath arched voices chanting, incense smoke curling toward a blue Egyptian sky. This is the beginning of a lineage where Pharaoh is not just a god, but a builder of peace, beauty, and commerce. Upon Hatshepsut's death, her stepson Thutmose III ascends the throne, first as a boy king, then as a single warrior. He often stands in her shadow, but soon outshines her as one of Egypt's greatest military pharaohs. He leads 17 campaigns into Levantine lands, crossing deserts and mountains, seizing cities from Megiddo to Naharain. His victories are carved into temple walls at Karnak, reliefs filled with chariots, spears, kneeling captives, and plundered treasures. But these wars do not drain Egypt's spirit. They enrich it. Gold, timber, exotic stones, and new gods return with the army. The kingdom prospers. Merchants trade turquoise from Sinai, cedar from Lebanon, and ebony from Nubia. Egypt's material wealth reaches unfathomable heights, yet for all his militaristic prowess, Thutmose is not solely a man of war. He is patron of the arts and religion. He expands the temple of Amen at Karnak, adding pylons so massive they dwarf the living. Colossal statues rise in sunlit courtyards. Priests chant daily processions, bathing the god statue and recite year after year. In death, Thutmose retreats quietly into the Valley of the Kings, choosing silence over pyramid. His tomb is filled with hymns, prayers, and images to guard him on his journey. It is he who embeds royal eternity into rock, quietly, intimately, without fanfare. Allow your thoughts to drift along the stone corridors. Hear the echo of sandals on ground smoothed by centuries. Sense the hush, feel the presence in death. As in life, Thutmose carries Egypt's empire within him, grandiloquent, Eternal. Egypt is at the height of its power, wealthy, stable, confident. Then, in a quiet royal palace, a change begins. Amenhotep IV, later known as Akhenaten, ascends the throne around 1353 BCE. He changes his name, which means effective Pharaoh, and quietly begins to reshape Egypt's spiritual soul. At the center of this change is Aten, the sun disk. Ancient Egyptians had worshipped Aten as part of the sun god's manifestations, but worship of Aten alone is radical. Akhenaten moves the capital from Thebes to a new city, Akhetaten, modern day Amarna. He closes temples to Aman and other gods. He breaks the power of the priesthood. He demands that Aten alone be honored. Through a radially inspired art and architecture, gone is the static, idealized art. Instead, we see elongated forms, intimate domestic scenes, Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti playing with their children. Beneath sunbeams, this is a meditation on light, life, and cosmic unity. He composes the great hymn to Aten, often compared to Psalm 104. Thou risest in one horizon. Thou settlest in the horizon of the west. Thou alone hast created the earth. Thou art the Lord of all lands. It is a poem of creation and unity, of intimate devotion and cosmic scope, but this spiritual revolution is unstable. Akhenaten's single-mindedness weakens Egypt's priests, turns away the faith of Thebes, and strains diplomacy. After 15 years, Akhenaten dies. His son Tutankhamun restores the old faith, changes his name to Tutankhamun, moves back to Thebes, and reinstates Amen's temples. His tomb, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter's, small but bursting with treasures, gold mask, chariots, figures, food jars meant for the afterlife. In his death, Egypt reclaims its spiritual heart, but the memory of Aten lingers in art, in him, in the notion of the pharaoh as a single agent of divine order. As you drift deeper, imagine the golden rays of Aten, feel their warmth expanding through your chest. Sense the hush after the storm of upheaval. Feel restoration not only of Egypt, but of balance within. The glimmering age of Amarna fades. Egypt renews itself under a new line of kings. Then comes a name that echoes through eternity, Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great. He reigns for 66 years, the second longest of any native pharaoh. Ramses is a man of arms, diplomacy, and architectural grandeur. He leads Egypt into battle against the Hittites at Kadesh around 1274 BCE. Though the battle is a stalemate, Ramses claims victory in grandiose reliefs set within Ramesseum's mortuary temple. There, his formidable image looms over carved panels depicting chariots, battlefield clamor, and captive enemies. But more than a warrior, Ramses is a diplomat. He signs the world's first peace treaty with the Hittite king Hattusili III. The treaty promises friendship beyond death. The agreement is inscribed in hieroglyphs in Egypt and Akkadian in the Hittite capital, emphasizing mutual respect and refuge for each other's citizens. This is diplomacy with a firm hand but open heart. Yet Ramses' greatest legacy may be in stone. He builds Abu Simbel, two twin temples carved into the cliff face, the larger dedicated to himself and the sun gods. At twice-yearly axes, sunlight penetrates the inner sanctum, illuminating statues of Ra-Horikti, Amun-Ra, and Ptah, but never Ramses, a testament to cosmic rhythm and his eternal association with the divine. Back at his mortuary complex, the Ramesseum, colossal statues of himself lie in shattered ruins, earthbound reminders of transcendent ambition. By the end of his reign, Ramses has fathered over 100 children, built cities like Pyramises, and left an empire lined with order. His breath may have slowed, but his monument still breathed as your exhale lengthens. Imagine the sun striking the niches of Abu Simbel. Feel the weight of tens of thousands of stones, carved with devotion. Sense the presence of a soul that shaped peace, war, faith, and eternity. It is a legacy not just of power, but of balance, achieved through diplomacy and devotion. Here, we pause among the great pharaohs at a turning point in history. We have walked through halls of power, across battlefields and temple courts. We have seen pharaohs as builders, warriors, priests, reformers, and as human beings, with hearts that hoped, feared, loved, and strove. These men and women did not simply build monuments. They built shared memory for their people, for their gods, for themselves, and yet, they understood fragility. Hatshepsut understood that peace can be crafted. Thutmose III knew that war could open worlds. Akhenaten showed that a single vision can reshape the soul, though only briefly. And Ramses II proved that leadership is as much about treaties as temples, as much about children and citizens as chariots and stone. So, dear listener, reflect now. Imagine a river that carries seeds of empire, drifting gently downstream, depositing life, memory, and legacy. See the temples rising on riverbanks. Hear the voices of priests bidding offerings. Feel the presence of kings, silent but immovable as the desert. Let the image soothe you. Let the stories soften your mind in the stillness. Find your own balance, and breathe. The golden gleam of Egypt's empire is dimming now. The sun still rises over the Nile. Offerings are still made in the temples. But outside the borders of the two lands, new powers stir. Assyrians, Persians, Greeks. The pharaoh is still divine. but his authority is challenged from within and without. Foreigners arrive not as traders, but as kings. Dynasties change rapidly. Temples fall into disuse, and in the heart of this long twilight, we find powerful women, unexpected resources, and the fading embers of the ancient world. Let us now drift through Egypt's final millennium of native rule into conquest, resistance, and transformation. After the long reign of Ramses III, the line of Ramesside pharaohs weakens. Internal conflict, economic troubles, and foreign pressure plague the once great empire. Egypt fractures, divided between rival dynasties in Tanis in the delta and Thebes in the south here. High priests of Amen wield real power in Thebes, while northern kings rule in name only. The line between secular and sacred leadership blurs. Pharaoh and priests become one. During the third intermediate period, Libyan chieftains, descendants of foreign mercenaries, settled in the delta seize the throne. The 22nd and 23rd dynasties, era of Libyan origin, but they adopt Egyptian customs, build temples, and honor traditional deities. Pharaoh is still divine but now also a general from a faraway tribe. In Thebes, priest kings like Herihor were both crown and leopard's robe, merging temple ritual with royal ceremony. It is a quieter kind of rule, less monumental, more mystical, less empire, more introspection. And as you rest, imagine the land under two suns: Thebes in the south, Tanis in the north. Dual crowns, dual powers, one sacred river flowing through history. From the far south, beyond the first cataract, comes an astonishing revival. The kingdom of Kush, centered in Nubia, has long been influenced by Egyptian culture, writing, religion, temples, and burial customs. But now, in the 8th century BCE, the Kushites look north not as students but as liberators. Pi, a devout and powerful Kushite king, invades Egypt and proclaims himself pharaoh, founding the 25th dynasty. He worships Amen deeply, restores temples in Thebes, and brings stability to a divided land. His successors, including Shabaka and Taharqa, rule over a united Nile valley stretching from Napata to Memphis. These black pharaohs are deeply Egyptian in style but with distinctive features. They revive old kingdom traditions, recarve eroded temples, and build new pyramids at El Karu and Nur Smola Stipa, clustered in desert sands. Pharaoh Taharqa is a powerful figure. He fights the Assyrians, builds monuments, and leaves a legacy of grandeur. But Assyria is relentless. Eventually they sack Thebes, and the Kushite dynasty is driven south. Still, their rule leaves an indelible mark. They are proof that Egypt's spirit lives beyond its borders, that the idea of the pharaoh is not bound by race or geography, but by devotion to Mat and the gods. As you relax now, picture those black granite statues of Kushite kings, broad-nosed, strong-jawed, dressed in fine linen, standing eternal. Let their strength soothe your dreams. Foreigners now dominate the land. After the Kushites come the Assyrians, then the Persians, who rule Egypt as one province in a vast empire. But the final flowering of pharaonic culture comes not from Asia but from the west. In 332 BCE, Alexander the Great marches into Egypt. The people, weary of Persian rule, welcome him as a liberator. He visits the oracle of Ammon at Siwa Oasis, where he is declared the son of the god, and founds a new city, Alexandria. After Alexander's death, his general Ptolemy seizes Egypt and establishes the Ptolemaic dynasty. These Greek kings adopt Egyptian customs, build temples in native style, and present themselves as true pharaohs. They marry within their family, hold lavish ceremonies, and commission statues of Horus, Osiris, and Isis. Among these rulers emerges one last legendary figure, Cleopatra. 7 educated, fluent in Egyptian and Greek, Cleopatra is both scholar and sovereign. She restores temples, negotiates with Rome, and rules alongside her brothers. But her power lies in her intellect and in her alliances. Her relationships with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony are not merely romantic, they are political moves to preserve Egypt's sovereignty. But after Antony's defeat by Octavian, at the Battle of Actium, Cleopatra sees the end. In 30 BCE, she takes her life, legend says, by asp venom, and Egypt becomes a Roman province. She is the last active pharaoh of Egypt. But Cleopatra is more than a queen. She is the final breath of an ancient civilization, still speaking to gods who had watched over the Nile for 3,000 years. Let your breath soften. Picture the moon rising over Alexandria's harbors. Hear the last whisper of hieroglyphs carved by torchlight, and feel the hush of history's final bow. The hush of night deepens around you. The Nile narrows to a moonlit thread. Temples sleep, statues rest, and the world of ancient Egypt turns inward to the mysteries that linger at dawn between the stars and the earth. In this closing chapter, we gently explore the deeper currents that carried this civilization across millennia, their magical beliefs, scientific observations, medical wisdom, and the ever-lingering promise of eternal life. Egyptian life is infused with magic, the soft hum of unseen forces woven into every breath, chant, and gesture. Magic or Heka is not superstition. It is a sacred science, the creative power within the divine word. To speak is to act. To inscribe is to manifest reality. In tombs, vignettes of the afterlife depict dwarves and demon guardians, magical boats floating over lakes of fire, and the heart of the deceased being weighed against a feather of mat. Survival depends on words spoken in purity, gestures made in balance. This is a world where speech shapes the world, and writing bridges earth and eternity. Priests and magicians study amulets, chants, and rituals to heal the sick, protect boats from crocodile attack, and ensure a safe journey to the field of reeds. A crocodile's tooth, wrapped in linen and dipped in resin, becomes a talisman. A formula written on papyrus banishes snakes from sleeping children. Every home, every tomb, holds traces of this gentle, pervasive magic. Alongside spirit stands science. The Egyptians observed the stars, seasons, and floods with precise care. Their star charts forecast the Nile's inundation. They divide the year into 3 seasons: the inundation arcade, the growing puree, and the harvest. These rhythms guide planting, building, and worship. Medical papyri, like the Ebers papyrus, offer remedies for ailments: honey and lint for wounds, willow bark extract for pain, cleansing decoctions for digestive woes. They know to drain abscesses, reset broken bones, treat tooth decay. Surgery is performed with copper tools sterilized in wine. Even mathematics becomes sacred. Building pyramids demands surveying, geometry, arithmetic. Rope stretchers mark right angles, cubits measure stones. They know the volume of a cylinder, the area of a circle, and the alignment of obelisks to solar events. Here is a people who see no conflict between the spiritual and the practical. A priest-physician combines incantation and ointment, remedy, and ritual in suites of care. From the beginning, Egyptians believe in an afterlife that mirrors and perfects this world. Death is passage, not end. The body is preserved, the name is inscribed, the soul is named and guided, and goods are placed to ensure comfort beyond the tomb's threshold. The most intimate expression of this belief is in funerary texts: pyramid texts, Old Kingdom spells carved into royal tombs; coffin texts, Middle Kingdom, expanded access for non-royals; Book of the Dead, New Kingdom, and later papyrus scrolls with 200 spells, illustrations, and vignettes. Each spell has purpose: to open the mouth so the deceased can speak and eat, to pass the gates of Duat, to transform into a heron, a swallow, or the horizon. They guide the soul past giants, bridges, lakes of fire, and serpents until, at last, they reach the field of reeds. Lush fields beneath a perfect sky, a mirror of the Nile Valley on earth. Temples and cities, mortuary chapels on desert cliffs, village shrines by canals all exist to sustain this eternal cycle. Offerings of bread, beer, lotus, hymn, and prayer maintain Mat in the world of the living, in the realm of the dead. Even as Egypt fell under foreign dominion, these beliefs persisted, absorbed into Roman and Christian traditions. The afterlife survived in magical papyri, nested in Christian charms. The idea of resurrection returned in texts like the Gospel of Nicodemus, echoing Osiris's timeless victory over death. And now, dear listener, your journey through Egypt's ancient soul draws gently to close. Feel your breath deepen. Let the whispers of temple hieroglyphs and the hush of tomb corridors echo softly in your mind. Sense the harmony woven between magic and medicine, ritual and mathematics. In the silence, know that balance, the silent cosmic tide of Mat, flows within you. As the Nile fed the pharaohs in the fields, so sleep feeds your being. Tonight, let this story drift as a quiet current in your dreams. May you dwell in the field of reeds, among eternal river flowers and endless sunlight. And when dawn comes, may you awaken rested, gently nourished by the echo of gods and kings who revered life, measured time, and whispered eternity into stone, papyrus, and sky.